Hi, welcome to my video on further explanations on even and odd functions with the absolute value, and this one is number 3. And the function we're going to do this time, absolute value, is f of x equals the absolute value of x squared minus 4. So we're going to see if it's an even or an odd function, so that means we're going to do the f of negative x into this equation here. So we're going to do negative x in the place of x. And we simplify. Negative x squared is x squared minus 4. So absolute value of x squared minus 4 is right here. And that's the same as the f of x, which means that it's an even function. And remember, this function is reflected. Because it's even, it's reflected in the y-axis. So let's look at the graph of this function. And the graph of this function we can look at. Let's see the y-intercept. So let's look at the y-intercept of this graph. That's when we make x equals 0. So the equation that we want to look at, instead of f of x, let's make this f of x a y. So it's x squared minus 4. So we make x equals 0, so y equals x squared minus 4 absolute value. 0 squared is 0, so that's a negative 4. The absolute value of negative 4 is 4. So when x is 0, y is 4. So that's that point up there. Now let's look at the x-intercept of this equation. The x-intercept of the equation, or when we make y equals 0. So that means y is 0, so 0 equals the absolute value of x squared minus 4. So the absolute value of what number gives you 0? So that means that x squared minus 4 must be equal to 0. Because the absolute value of 0 is 0. That means that x squared is equal to 4. X is equal to plus or minus the root of 4. X is plus or minus 2. So that means x is 2, y is 0. X is negative 2, y is 0. So x is 2, right here, y is 0. X is negative 2, y is 0. Now, what we have to do is to look at, we can do a table of values on these ordered pairs and see what they're doing. Let's look at the table of values. It's one way. So, we know that we have negative 2 to a 2. So let's look at the negative 3. And then we look at negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. We know we got a negative 2 and a 2. We know we got a 0. So let's look at values to the left of negative 2, in between negative 2 and 2, and greater than. So let's take a negative 3 and put it into this equation. Put a negative 3 in here. Put a negative 3. So negative 3 squared is 9. So we have 9 minus 5, negative 3 squared is 9. 9 minus 4 is 5. The absolute value of 5 is 5. Now we're going to put a negative 2 in. Negative 2 squared is 4. And 4 minus 4 is 0. The absolute value of 0 is 0. Put a negative 1 in. Negative 1 squared is 1. Subtracting, get negative 3. Absolute value of negative 3 is 3. Let's put a 0 in. And we already put a 0 in here, and we got a 4. So, you put negative 1 in, you get 3. You put 1 in. 1 and negative 1 is the same, because x squared is 1. So we get a 3. You put a 2 in. A negative 2 and 2 will give you 4, which gives you a 0. And a negative 3 and 3 are the same because of the square, so that's a 9. 3 squared is 9, that gives you 5. Absolute value is 5. So let's look at those numbers. So we have 3 gives us negative 3 gives us a 5. So let's say that's right there. And negative 2 gives us a 0. Negative 1 gives us a 3 right here. And 0 gives us a 4. 1 gives us a 3, which is here. And 2 gives us a 0. So, and 3 gives us a 5. So it looks like a sort of an odd graph. But let's explain what's going on here. And you were to graph it, you say, what do I do? Well, let's look at the inside of this. Let's call the inside of this. Let's pretend that this came from a composite function. So let's pretend that this function came from f of x equals the absolute value of x, and also the g of x equals x squared minus 4. So a composite function, the f of the g of x would be, the g of x is going in here, would give you this. So the inside of this is really, I'm going to call it the g of x, is a parabola. And if this is a parabola, then we have the vertex, we have no brackets, so that we wrote that like this. Then the vertex would be 0, negative 4. So we would have I'm drawing another little graph now just on this to explain it. So we have a vertex of x is 0, y is 4. And if we let y equals 0, that's a y. So we're letting y equals 0, we get this equation. So when you let y equals 0, you get this. So when you, let y equals 0, you get x squared minus 4x equals 0. And that's the same as right here. So that means we get 2, 0 and negative 2, 0 without working all this out again. Here it is right here. So we got a parabola that got x-intercepts at 2, 0 and negative 2, 0. So this parabola got a vertex here opening up to these x-intercepts. Because this is 2, negative 2 and 2, halfway between these x-intercepts is the axis of symmetry, which is x equals 0. So this is a parabola that's doing this. So if you take 1 and put into this equation, you get negative 3. If you put negative 1 in this equation, negative 1 squared is 1. 1 minus 4 is negative 3. If you put a 1 into this equation, you also get x squared is 1, you get a negative 3. So this is the parabola, but we have to do the absolute value on this parabola. So what happens when you do the absolute value on this, all of these values, as you can see, all these values down here are negative. So that means they got to become positive. So that's why this value here at 1 is a 3. And this value at negative 1 becomes, that's x is negative 1, y is negative 3, but we can't have negative 3, so it becomes a positive. So that's why it's up here. So this graph, based on that parabola, so this graph is doing this. The bottom part of this parabola right here is right here, because we can't have any negative y values. There they are there. And this part here continues. Here's the part of the parabola that's doing this. So if you imagine from here, I'm just going to draw a dotted line, it was down here, being part of the parabola, but because of the absolute value, all these negative values moved up here. So I thought that would be a nice one, another one to do with an absolute value, different function. And again, if you like, if you like my video, click the like button, click the subscribe button. Visit my math website, www.mathfullyexplained.com, to find more information about me, my video, and the content. That's the content on my YouTube channel called Math Fully Explained, just one word. Thank you for viewing my video. Hope the video helped you. Bye-bye.